Good evening again, everybody. Hell's Unicorn here, reporting live from the murky, dark forests of William Penn here at midnight on May 22nd. And yes, my friends, it is with supreme disappointment that I must announce that the rapture did not occur. And we are once again left behind, all alone, left to contemplate why, just why was it that the Deer Herald camping was wrong? Personally, I don't care, actually. I was just being a bit facetious there. So anyway, the whole gist of this video is just going to be a breakdown of the last week's events on a personal level for me, and just an explanation for some things here. This is actually in part inspired by a little mistake that I recently made. This is actually a bit embarrassing, and had a subscriber and friend of mine point this out to me. Apparently, I inadvertently thumbed up a video put up by a radical communist blogger here, and I got fooled into doing it primarily because there was a lot of footage from my favorite comedian, George Carlin, on it. Upon receiving this information, proceeded to visit the particular channel, which is called Worker Girls, which is actually supposedly based out of Cuba, if you can believe it, and got an earful of classic cliché Marxist propaganda, intertwined, of course, with some anti-war rhetoric, which obviously I am all in favor of. I am not in favor of any of our incursions in the Middle East whatsoever. I think it is more profitable to seek actual capitalism, which is, of course, the to put it in Marxist terms, exploitation of the Earth's resources for the betterment of humanity. I believe that capitalism, free market ideology, is largely a very benevolent practice, and it only becomes malevolent when we give the state the reign over it and give to it authorities that it is not charged with according to good and reasonable governmental function. Now, what that is obviously open to some interpretation. But anyway, the reason why this mistake actually took place was because I have not gotten a lot of sleep this week. And I'll just recap why. This past Tuesday was the primary elections for the state of Pennsylvania. And of course, we did not have any statewide or federal primaries to speak of, so it was all local stuff. And during the last election, I was tapped to be a machine inspector. As a matter of fact, I did that for the last 2 elections, but the previous election was the first time that I actually did this on a full-time basis. And what that consisted of was me showing up at the polling station at around 6:30 in the morning and staying there until about 9 o'clock at night. Soon after the election, I was actually asked if I would like to take over as the judge of elections. Now, for those of you who are not versed in what this means in terms of voting precincts, what it is that there are 3 people that are in charge of making sure that all elections are certified: the majority inspector, the minority inspector, and the judge of elections. The judge of elections is an elected office. However, due to the fact that the current judge of elections for my precinct was only partway through his term and he resigned for health reasons, I was appointed, and thus I will actually be running for office in a couple years. But I'm pretty much going to be grandfathered in, since this is an office that few people ever run for. It's usually something that you get into via line of succession, and usually it's through being a machine inspector or being something else beforehand. The job of judge of elections is very demanding. It basically consisted of me getting up at 4:45, driving over to the township building, which is actually only a couple of blocks from my house, and then proceeding to opening up the entire polling station. Within about 15-20 minutes of me arriving, the other representatives arrived. There were 7 people in total involved. and we were responsible for starting up the voting machines. Now, contrary to what a lot of people say with regards to voting machines, the actual means by which any fraud could take place would have to be involved very specifically with the programming of the machines. But at least as far as our precinct is concerned, this is a near impossibility, considering that there are 7 different witnesses that actually observe the counting of the votes. And the votes are actually counted in 6 or 7 different ways. There is a tally taken on paper by the majority inspector, in which all of the people that turn out to vote are written down on a list in order by number. This particular list has a carbon copy. One is kept by the Board of Elections, which is located nearby, and the other is kept by the minority party's representative. This way we can assure that there is no fixing of elections in favor of one political party, and this particular district is a majority Republican district. So the Democrat was the one that got the carbon copy. This is one mode of counting the votes. The next mode actually is the actual John Hancocks of all of the people that came in to vote. We keep separate books in which everybody signs off that they are who they say they are. We don't actually check ID unless it is a first-time voter for this particular district, and then it's only the first time that they show up. After this, we rely on the signature. And that is the second means. And then with the actual machines themselves, there are 3 different counts that are recorded. One is an actual digital printout, which is done by the machine, which we have 3 copies of, and these copies are each signed by the judge and the 2 inspectors, the majority and the minority one. And then alongside that, there is also a digital readout on the back of the machine, which is recorded separately. And there is also an analog counter, similar to the ones that appear in early VCRs, that counts every vote ever tallied on the machine. And this number is compared against the number of the current election that has just taken place and all previous elections in which this machine was in use. So, given the fact that you have 7 different witnesses and you have 4 machine ways of counting and 2 actual physical means of counting, actual fraud can only take place if everybody in the locality is involved and if the Board of Elections in that particular locality, which is separate from the precinct officials, is involved. It's pretty hard to fathom. Any notions that I've had about stolen elections or manufactured votes is something that I can say with confidence does not occur in my district. Now, there is one little problem, and that is that I can't speak for places like Philadelphia, where I'm pretty certain that there is massive voter fraud going on. Or better yet, even Chicago, which is, the birthplace of the Messiah. And we can prove that Barack Obama is the Messiah because in his home state it is a regular occurrence where the dead live again and show up to cast their votes. So anyway, to make a long story short, turnout for this month's election, this primary election for this particular year, was abysmal. For my precinct, we had a 9% voter turnout. We had people up for school board, for local judge offices, and for tax collector, and for a number of other important local offices. Bill Clinton once said that all politics is local, and to an extent I agree with him. But the problem is that most people don't seem to care what goes on in their respective locale, unless it's something that directly impacts them on a particular day. Out of 1,800 registered voters, only 173 showed up to vote, 5 of them by absentee ballot. You know, all I can say with regards to that is this is the America of today, and this is the reason why I often make indignant blog posts whenever I put stuff up here on YouTube, because I am indignant. But in addition to being indignant, I'm also pretty tired. My own full-time job naturally has taken a lot out of me, and in addition to that, on Wednesday I actually helped a friend move a whole bunch of stuff out of his house. I must have carried about somewhere between 40 and 50 boxes full of stuff. So, to put it one way, I am completely spent. In fact, I would venture to guess that I'm barely making it through this video without stuttering or correcting my speech several times, which is yet another sign that I need to get some sleep, which I intend to do. Sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, but the rapture has not occurred and we're all still here. And to my friend who pointed out my little error with regards to the video, thanks for pointing this out to me. You saved me a good amount of embarrassment, even though I actually came out and admitted it myself. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of content on YouTube that can be fairly misleading. Although, to tell you the truth, the title of the video was a little bit suspect also, but I just haven't been thinking straight. I think I might take a couple days off before doing another blog, too. Need to get some sleep. So, till next time, with prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.